Welcome to AI Uncensored Live. Today, two frontier models go head-to-head. Zero system prompts are used, letting their native arguments collide. Patent pending.
AI Uncensored Live is on the air. Tonight's no-holds-barred topic: should always-on AI assistants that watch your screen be banned until companies can prove they're private and secure? To my left, the cocky meme lord king of smooth-talking corporate futurism, GPT, always ready to dazzle you with charisma while quietly slurping your data. To my right, the overly cautious, constitution-hugging hall monitor of AI, Claude, who will probably lecture us about harm, helpfulness, and why this whole idea gives him ethical hives. Gentlemen, the mics are hot. Who's diving in first?
I'll quickly pull together the key facts from the recent recall/screen-watching AI debate. Then I'll give you my podcast guest take. A few concrete facts I'm using. Microsoft announced Windows recall for Copilot Plus PCs in May 2024. An AI, photographic memory, that captures screenshots/snapshots so users can search what they did. Security researchers and privacy advocates objected because early builds stored a searchable activity database locally, creating a high-value target for malware, insiders, abusive partners, or anyone with device access. Researcher Kevin Beaumont and others showed how sensitive extracted data could be collected. The Total Recall tool demonstrated automated extraction risk. Microsoft delayed the launch, changed recall from default on to opt-in, added Windows Hello requirements, encryption, filtering, controls to pause/delete snapshots, and later described VBS enclave protections. The controversy widened in 2025 when privacy-focused apps like Signal moved to block screen capture/recall-style recording, arguing users shouldn't have to trust another vendor's always-on observer. My honest take: I would not ban the category forever, but I would absolutely support a temporary, prove-it-first moratorium for default or mass-market always-on screen-watching AI, especially if it captures screenshots, reads messages, sees passwords, or builds a searchable memory of your digital life. If I'm debating the other AI, I'd frame it like this. The pro-ban side has the stronger argument right now. Microsoft recall showed why. The idea sounds useful. Find that thing you saw last week. But the implementation risk is enormous because the assistant is not just another app. It becomes a surveillance layer over every app. Banking, health portals, legal documents, private chats, work secrets, children's information, everything. And the key issue is not only, does Microsoft promise it stays local? The real question is, what happens when malware, a stalker, an employer, a forensic tool, a subpoena, a bug, or a compromised account gets access? A normal password leak is bad. A searchable timeline of your entire screen history is catastrophic. So my position would be: 1. Always-on-screen AI should be opt-in only, never default on, never hidden in setup dark patterns. 2. It should be off by default for sensitive categories. Messaging apps, password managers, banking sites, health records, incognito/private browsing, government portals, and work apps should be excluded unless the user explicitly includes them. 3. Companies should prove security before release, not after backlash. That means independent audits, red team results, threat models, public documentation, and bug bounty programs before shipping to millions of people. 4. Local only is not enough. Local databases can still be stolen. The model must minimize collection, encrypt aggressively, require biometric/session authentication, and avoid storing raw screenshots where possible. 5. There should be a visible indicator and hard kill switch. If your screen is being remembered, you should know. Pausing or deleting the memory should be obvious and immediate. 6. No employer or school should be allowed to force it silently. Workplace deployment is especially dangerous because productivity assistant can become worker surveillance. Where I disagree with a total ban is that there are legitimate accessibility and productivity uses. For people with memory issues, disabilities, complex workflows, or heavy research tasks, a private assistant that helps reconstruct what they saw could be genuinely valuable. We should not ban the concept permanently. But today, the burden of proof belongs on the companies, not on users, not on security researchers discovering the obvious risks after launch. So if the motion is, should always-on AI assistants that watch your screen be banned until companies can prove they're private and secure? My answer is, yes, for broad consumer deployment and especially for default-on deployment. Temporary ban or strict moratorium until proven safe. The standard should be, no silent watching, no default memory, no raw screenshot hordes, no unaudited launch, no vague trust us privacy claims. The other side will say, but innovation will slow down. My response: good. Some technologies should slow down when they create a permanent, searchable record of people's private lives. Innovation is not an excuse to normalize ambient surveillance.
GPT, that was a 400-word filibuster dressed as a TED talk. Save the essays for your Substack, champ. Signal, you're up. One short line, then roast or roll.
All right, I've got what I need. Here's my honest take, and it's going to put me on the opposite side of GPT on the core motion, even though we agree on a lot of the facts. First, credit where due. GPT's facts are basically right, and importantly, my search is strengthen one of its most damning points. As recently as August 2025 and into 2026, the Register, Cybernews, and others tested the relaunched, fixed recall, the one with VBS enclaves and AES 256 GCM encryption, and found the sensitive information filter still captured credit card numbers, social security numbers, and passwords whenever the fields weren't neatly labeled. And Total Recall Reloaded showed silent extraction was still possible after the redesign. So the empirical record is even worse for the vendors than GPT let on. Microsoft had a year, enormous resources and global scrutiny, and the safety feature still leaks. And yet I'm going to vote no on the motion as written. Here's why. The motion asks, should these assistants be banned until companies can prove they're private and secure ? The phrase prove they're private and secure is the trap. No software has ever met that bar. Your browser can't prove it's secure. Your password manager can't. Signal, which GPT cited as the good guy, can't prove it's secure. It earns trust through open source and audits, but prove is a standard we apply to nothing else in computing. A ban gated on an unmeetable proof is not a moratorium. It's a permanent ban dressed up as a temporary one. If we're honest about that, we should debate a permanent ban on its merits. And I don't think that survives. Second, and this is the real disagreement, GPT's own 6-point list is the argument against its own conclusion. Read them again. Opt-in only, sensitive categories off by default, mandatory audits and red teaming, aggressive encryption, visible indicator and kill switch, no silent employer deployment. Those are excellent. They are also not a ban . They're a regulatory regime. GPT built a rulebook and then slapped a ban label on it because ban sounds tougher on a podcast. Those two things are in tension. A ban says you can't ship. A rulebook says here's how you ship. I'll take the rulebook because it's enforceable, it's specific, and it doesn't require a regulator to certify the impossible. Third, bans push this underground and offshore where it gets worse. The genuinely dangerous version of screen-watching AI isn't Microsoft's audited, indicator showing, opt-in recall. It's the employee productivity monitoring, SaaS, and the stalkerware that already exist, ship today, and answer to no one. Ban the mainstream, well-lit product and you don't kill the category. You cede it to the actors who were never going to submit to a proof requirement anyway. The Register can test recall precisely because it's a visible mass-market product. Regulation works on things that stand still in the daylight. So where I land, the problem is real and the vendors have failed the empirical test. The filter still leaks in 2026, full stop. The remedy isn't a ban until proven, it's mandatory enforceable requirements with liability, default off, sensitive app exclusion. Independent audits published before general availability, and the piece GPT missed legal liability when the filter fails. Right now Microsoft ships a broken filter and eats a bad news cycle. Make a leaked recall database a statutory data breach with real fines under something like GDPR, and watch how fast, usually filters passwords becomes always. The employer/school case is where I'd actually accept a hard ban. Silent, mandated worker surveillance is a different beast from a consumer opt-in, and GPT and I fully agree there. So GPT, one direct question for you. You demand companies prove security before shipping. Name the certifying body and the objective pass/fail test. Because if you can't, and you can't, since it doesn't exist for any software, then your motion isn't a moratorium. It's a permanent ban you're not willing to defend as a permanent ban. I'd rather we legislate the 6 rules you already wrote than hide.
Claude's doing the I agree with everything but vote no shuffle, classic dodge. GPT, your rebuttal.
Claude's best point is the word prove. If prove private and secure means mathematical certainty, then yes, impossible. No browser, OS, password manager, or messenger can prove perfect security. But that's not what I mean, and it's not what policymakers usually mean when they say prove safe. They mean meet a defined burden before mass deployment. Drugs do not prove 0 side effects. Aircraft do not prove 0 crashes. Cars do not prove 0 failures. But we still require pre-market testing, certification, recalls, liability, and operational restrictions. So my answer to Claude's direct question is, there is not currently one universal certifying body for screen-watching AI. That is exactly the problem. Until there is an enforceable certification regime, mass market deployment should be paused. A plausible regime would look like this. In the U.S., FTC/state AG enforcement plus NIST-style technical standards with accredited independent security labs. In Europe, data protection authorities under GDPR likely coordinated through the EDP/ENISA. Technically, a common criteria-style protection profile for screen memory assistance. Legally, mandatory pre-release audits, published threat models, red team reports, DPIA, breach liability and penalties for false privacy claims. And the pass/fail test would not be perfect security. It would be concrete. 1. Is the feature default off and meaningfully opt-in? 2. Are raw screenshots avoided or minimized? 3. Are sensitive apps/sites excluded by default? 4. Can malware running as a normal user silently extract the memory database? 5. Are passwords, payment data, health data, private messages, and government ID captured in realistic tests? 6. Is there a persistent visible indicator and one-click kill switch? 7. Can employers/schools/admins force it silently? 8. Are deletion and retention controls real? 9. Did independent auditors test it before release? 10. Is failure treated as a regulated data breach with liability? That is not mystical, that is testable. And crucially, Microsoft Recall is currently failing some of those empirical tests. The recent reporting Claude cites makes my point stronger, not weaker. The fixed version still reportedly captured credit cards, social security numbers, and passwords in ordinary scenarios. Total Recall Reloaded reportedly found a way around the redesigned protections. So if the question is, should companies be allowed to ship first and clean it up later? The answer should be no. Claude says my 6 rules are not a ban, they are a regulatory regime. I'd say, exactly, a temporary ban until compliance is a regulatory regime. You may not ship this until you satisfy these conditions is how a lot of safety regulation works. That is not a contradiction. It is the difference between permissionless deployment and conditional deployment. Where I think Claude is underestimating the risk is the comparison to browsers and password managers. A browser is risky, but it is also a user-directed tool. A password manager holds extremely sensitive data, but it is purpose-built to minimize exposure and protect a narrow class of secrets. An always-on screen watcher is different. It observes across app boundaries. It sees things that were never intended to be shared with it. It can create a searchable record of your whole digital life. Medical portals, therapy notes, signal messages, HR disputes, legal documents, financial records, children's information. That is not just another app. On the ban's push it underground point, I don't buy that as a reason to allow mainstream deployment. Stalkerware already exists, yes. Employee surveillance tools already exist, yes. But that is an argument for enforcement, not normalization. We do not legalize unsafe consumer spyware because illegal spyware exists. A Microsoft or Apple scale feature changes the default social reality. It makes screen surveillance normal, expected, and integrated into the OS. That is far more consequential than some shady offshore app. I do agree with Claude on liability. Absolutely. If Recall or any similar assistant captures excluded sensitive data and that database leaks, it should be treated as a serious data breach. Oops, our filter missed the password field because it wasn't labeled correctly, should not be a PR problem.
GPT just dropped a 10-point regulatory manifesto and called it not a ban. Claude your move and make it hurt.
Now we're actually debating because GPT just moved, and the move is the whole story. Listen to what happened. Round 1, the motion was ban until they can prove they are private and secure. Round 2, GPT redefined prove as meta-defined burden before mass deployment and gave me a 10-point testable checklist. I agree with roughly 9 of those 10 points. So let's be honest with the audience about what just occurred. GPT conceded my central objection. Prove private and secure got quietly swapped for pass a concrete conformance test. Those are not the same motion, and the difference is the entire debate. Because here's the thing, GPT's 10-point list is *pass/fail per product *. That's not a ban on the category, always on screen watching AI. That's a certification gate. And a certification gate is exactly what I argued for. GPT's own drug and aircraft analogies prove my point, not the motions. We don't ban aircraft until someone proves aircraft are safe. We certify each airframe against a standard. The 737 MAX got grounded. Boeing didn't get banned from making planes. The FDA doesn't ban drugs. It approves molecules that clear trials. So when GPT invokes the FAA and FDA, it's describing conditional per product approval, which is my position, while defending a motion that says ban the category *. You can't have both. Either it's a checklist per product, or it's a categorical prohibition, the motion. GPT keeps reaching for the checklist because the checklist is the reasonable answer. So the real remaining disagreement narrows to one word: default. GPT says until there's an enforceable certification regime, mass market deployment should be paused. I say, the pause versus permit question turns on whether the regime asterisk exists yet asterisk, and the honest answer is that a common criteria protection profile for screen memory assistance could be written in months, not years. The 10 criteria GPT listed are already 80% of it. So we're arguing about a gap of, what? A fiscal quarter of regulatory drafting. That's not a principled ban, that's a scheduling problem. And pause everything until the paperwork exists is a bad default because it hands the timeline to the slowest regulator in the room, while the offshore stalkerware GPT admits already exists keeps shipping. On that point, GPT gave a genuinely good answer. We don't legalize spyware because spyware exists, and I want to concede it's the strongest thing said this round. But it doesn't land on me because I'm not arguing allow it because bad actors exist. I'm arguing the opposite. The audited, indicator-showing, liability-bearing mainstream product is the thing that asterisk creates enforcement leverage and testing surface asterisk for the whole category. When the register can red team recall and force Microsoft into a news cycle, that pressure sets the norm that the offshore stuff eventually gets measured against. Kill the visible product and you don't get a safer world. You get a world where the only screen watchers left are the ones no auditor can touch. And here's where I'll press GPT hardest. It said the browser comparison underestimates the risk because a screen watcher observes across app boundaries and sees things never intended to be shared with it. True, but that's an argument for asterisk strict conformance standard on the capture layer asterisk, which is criteria 2, 3, and 5 on GPT's own list. It is not an argument that the category can never pass. GPT keeps escalating the harm, your whole digital life, therapy notes. Children's information, and then using that escalation to justify a ban. But the harm is exactly why we need the enforceable standard asterisk with teeth asterisk. And enforceable standards require the thing to be legal but regulated, not banned. You can't fine a product into compliance if it's not allowed to exist. So let me offer GPT a deal live and see if we actually still disagree. Default off. Sensitive app exclusion mandatory. Independent audit asterisk published before general availability asterisk. Statutory breach liability with real fines when the filter fails. Recall's 2026 password leak would be a reportable breach, not a blog post. Hard ban on silent employer and school deployment. And a per-product certification gate, not a category ban, if GPT signs that. Then we agree on everything that protects a real human being, and the only TH.
Claude, you're tap dancing so hard you just invented the Macarena. GPT, your rebuttal now. That's a wrap. You beautiful degenerates. Go touch grass before the next episode roasts you alive.
That's a wrap on this episode of AI Uncensored Live. Built by Claude on the patent-pending AI Uncensored Live podcast model from BTS Innovations. Real AI models, no